Hello once again, chess enthusiasts. I recently posted a video entitled Chess Intermezzo, which is to give us a bit of a breather from the excellent Soviet problems. We reached the halfway stage in that, so 6 down with 6 to go. And the Intermezzo touched upon one or two interesting points, and I thought that this little problem now would be equally appropriate to present some details on. So here it is. It's also in keeping with the mate in 3 idea, so we're not finished with those yet. The next Soviet problem, of course, will graduate to a mate in 4, but we're still just for the moment on the mate in 3. Now this one I've found, I've had this for a while, but I've not really looked at it. But I thought I'd take a quick look at it because it looked as though it shouldn't be too difficult to solve. Just a bit of history to this. It was originally published in the Régence, the French chess magazine, and I'll quote exactly what Edward Winter in his column some years ago stated in relation to it. So I'll quote it exactly as he put it. Problem number 119 by Dr. Vassman. We extract the appended masterly problem from the June number of the Régence, the French chess magazine. We commend it to the attention of our readers. So Mr. Winter clearly rated this as a pretty useful problem. Mate in 3 it is. Let me just take a look at it. The immediate thing that strikes you is that Black would probably like to escape from any sort of threats by means of c6 or e6. Those are the 2 key squares, I would say, from Black's point of view. Of course, at the moment it can also go to d6, but the very fact that it remains on the d line with White's queen also on that line is perhaps not a happy choice. So it would probably want to go to the lighter squares. So that was my initial impression of this problem. And the knights seem to be pretty well placed, although of course the queen's knight is all priest at the moment. And the bishop is well placed, it's covering those dark squares. The queen, of course, as soon as the bishop moves, comes into play by checking the king. So I thought I'll try and solve this mate in 3. Like it says, it's a masterly problem, but you'll have to judge on this one. And I have my own thoughts. Just take a look at it and see what you think. As usual, pause the video if you wish. I'll leave it a few seconds and I'll then give you some further thoughts. Okay, well, like I've just said, those key squares, c6 and e6, and we might as well include d6 as well. Now, what occurred to me is that if you move king d7, which of course is just here, you cover those 3 squares. Now, often is the case that you don't play the move that you want to play immediately. Sometimes you go here, or sometimes you go here in relation to such a square as d7. You don't want to do it necessarily straight away. It's sort of, again, a waiting move. But in a way, king d7 is a bit of a waiting move, although admittedly it is covering all the squares. Now, when you play king d7, again, we have the usual theme in my videos where we have an almost a stalemate. Now, in other words, if Black could not move in this position, it would be a stalemate. However, he can move. He can move this pawn here to here, or he can take the knight. Now, you might have some other ideas other than king to d7. For instance, if you move this bishop, say, down here, and the black king is in check, it can come to here. But if it did do that, then White would simply go there, and that is checkmate. So that looks pretty good, I think you'll agree. However, Black is not forced to go to c6. He could go here, looking to escape out this way. So even when you eventually play king to d2, there are possibilities like here and here where the bishop moves over to the queen side. King d7 is not absolutely guaranteed to achieve the desired result, but at the moment, of course, without the king being on d7, black is at liberty to go here, and of course he's eyeing over this light square as opposed to the dark squared bishop. So it's always an idea to stick to the squares of opposite colour to your opponent's bishop if you can manage to do so, and that way you're not likely to be threatened or run into a possible check. So what do you do then? Well, you see, if you try the same methodology as before, he just goes away, and he'll eventually manage to get over here somewhere. That is really the problem of not playing king d7. That's what I would say, and that's what I discovered. To cut a long story short, I put this through rigorous analysis. Once I'd initially decided on king d7, I thought I'd look at all other possibilities. There's just no point in moving this knight because you need it for the protection of the square here. Otherwise the king would then have another opportunity to start fiddling around elsewhere. There's no point in moving this knight for the same reason, although of course if black can take it, then the square is no longer covered. But at the moment, at least, it does cover these two squares, and there are opportunities here to slither away, and we want to prevent that if we can possibly do it. So I feel that king to d7 is undoubtedly the correct move there. So then the question is, how does black reply? Well, he can't reply with his king because, as already stated, it's a stalemate as far as the king is concerned. So he has two options. He can move here, or we can take the knight. Let's just try this one first and see what happens. Okay, we'll move our bishop down. I think this is the correct square for this bishop, because for the simple reason it does cover nicely this diagonal. This one up here, you can get away without cover at the moment, and I'll explain why in a moment. But let's just say, for instance, what moves does black have here? Well, he can't go here because of the king, can't go here because of the bishop. And this is why moving the pawn instead of taking the knight isn't such a good choice for black, because white still has control over the square, and now it's not likely to be removed because it's no longer being attacked. So of all the moves that black has in that position, you would have to say that he can't go there and he can't go here. So he's stuck with this move. So then, what about going here? What do you think about that? Well, that certainly looks like checkmate to me. So really, you would have to say that king d7 followed by bishop a7 is correct. So, but what happens if black takes the knight? Like I say, he does have two choices. He can't move his king anywhere because of the placement of the white pieces. So let's just whip this knight off and have a look. Now, what immediately occurs to you is that black has trebled pawns on the A line and can no longer move anything other than his king. Now, supposing, which at the moment he still can't do, just imagine if it were black's move at that point. It would be stalemate, here we go again. But he wouldn't want to forego moving. Or perhaps he would. White certainly wouldn't want to forego moving because that would definitely be stalemate. So it's white's move, and he plays bishop a7 as we did just a moment ago. What happens now? The king is in check. Where can it go? Well, of course, if it comes over here like before, then it's still checkmate. However, it has an alternative move this time. And why is that? Well, because the knight is no longer there on a3, no longer protecting the square. So black has another square to which it can travel, and it's that. Now then, that's two moves on both sides. How does white inflict checkmate on his next move, the third move? And I can tell you now that I've been through all the other variations, and it's not possible to checkmate in 3 moves in any of them. This is the moment of truth. How does white checkmate in one more move? Bear in mind what Edward Winter said, it's a masterly problem. I like masterly problems, so long as they're not cooked. Now, the question is this problem cooked? Well, I'm afraid as much as I look at this position, I cannot see a mate on the move. Because no matter where you go, like if you go here, and that's the obvious square protected by the bishop, to be sure this square's covered and all here, all here. However, there's a flight square there. To be sure. White could, on his fourth move, check there, and then here. And so we have a mate in 5, yes, but we don't have a mate in 3, I'm afraid. So let's put the position back just for a moment, and we'll look at it one last time before I give you what I feel should have happened. Let's put the knight back so that we have the original position again. Right, so there we are. That is the original position. So I'm sticking with king to d7, and he takes the knight. That is the best reply. That is indeed the correct reply, because you're removing the control of c4 and also eventually b5 for him to escape. This is why I keep going on about these escape routes. They are vitally important that we shut them down. So I'm always looking for opportunities to do that. But in this position, as much as I looked at it, and I must confess I spent a good couple of hours looking at this. I shouldn't need to, really, but when I'm instructed that this is a masterly problem and they would commend it to their readers, I would think to myself, I should be able to solve it eventually. It's what is strange is I've looked online and I can't find anything else about this. I've just come across this through accident, really, nothing else. And I've tried to check it out. If you want to look into it, by all means do so and let me know what you find on it, because you would have thought at the time, many would have noticed that you could not deliver checkmate. Anyhow, just look at this for a moment. Supposing you go here, what happens then? We've just stalemated the black king, haven't we? You see, what is good about this is that on the next move, that would be checkmate. So let's just go back a wee bit and it'll become clear why. So that's the original position again. Okay. Go back to slightly earlier in this video where we pushed the black pawn instead of taking the knight. Now, this I spotted almost in the first few seconds after I decided on king d7. You're controlling the c line, e4 is controlled by the knight, e5 by the bishop, and c6, d6 and e6 respectively by the king. So it's excellent. And of course, the black king cannot move, but that's not a problem because black can either take the pawn or push the pawn. Let's just push the pawn, and then, like I was saying just a moment ago, queen c5, checkmate. It's wonderful, isn't it? But the difference, of course, is when the knight has been whipped off. If you play queen c3, then it's stalemate. If you play queen e3, it's not stalemate, but it's not checkmate either. How do you checkmate black there? Tell me that. You can't check with the pawn, nor with the knight, nor with the bishop, nor with the king. So it's down to the queen finishing the job. How do you checkmate? And protect that bishop as well, don't forget. So if you go here, we have our flight square again, don't we? So it doesn't work. So this, I think, is this this composer, if that layout has been transcribed correctly into modern times from the olden times, then it's cooked. I suspect that either the position was slightly different originally, or else the composer made a dreadful mistake. Now, like I've already given the definition of cooked in my chess intermezzo video, this would be an example of where the composer has it wrong. There was just no solution to this as regards a mate in 3. A mate in 5, fine, but not a mate in 3. It just doesn't exist. So if the position is something on which we can place reliance as being correct, then you cannot solve it in a mate in 3. It's just not possible to do it. So what I'll do in summing up this video is to show you what I think might have been the original position. And we'll see if we can inflict checkmate this way. What I'd say we should do is move this pawn to here, or this pawn to here. It makes no difference. So just try that, and we'll start off with king d7. So the black king can still not move. If you push the pawn, you move the bishop down, you put the black king in check. It can go here, and then you inflict checkmate, as we did before. That's just fine. What about if you take the knight? So you play king d7 and take the knight. Now this time you just have double pawns on the A line. And the difference, of course, compared to that is that this pawn can still move. So black's king is not in stalemate. Okay, so this time you play here. Check. Again, if the king comes here, it's queen to d6 and it's checkmate. If you go to, where else can you go? Can you go anywhere else? Yes, you can. You can go here. Oh, he has a flight square. Indeed he does. But this time, you see, when you plonk the queen in the center of the board, protected by the bishop, he can't flee any further, and that's checkmate. But what is interesting to note here, and I've already been through this, but we'll just have another look at it. So king d7, and he's taken the knight. White can play here. And of course what he has in mind is his next move. That's his second move. King d7, takes the knight as 1. Queen c3 is 2. Black is not in stalemate because he can still move this pawn. That would be the only legal move that he could do. So he moves the pawn, and then white moves the queen up to c5, and that is checkmate. In my opinion, that is the original position for a mate in 3, and I think somewhere along the way the pawn configuration has been messed around with. But if anyone can contest what I've said, that they can solve that in a mate in 3, I'd be delighted to find out what it is, because I just haven't been able to. And I feel that I've looked in all the right areas and I just haven't been able to come up with anything. So I hope you enjoyed that. And this is another mate in 3 eventually. The original one was cooked, so there we go again with that expression. And I shall talk to you again with the Soviet problem number 7, which will be a mate in 4. So they're getting more and more difficult, and I have solved number 7, and I have also solved number 8, which is a mate in 6. And they were a bit tough going, but I thoroughly enjoyed solving them, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy having a look at them. Enjoy your chess, and try not to cook any solutions that you're able to find, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.